Chapter 2: Obstacles to Economic Progress. In Chapter 1 of Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, Kwame Nkrumah showed us Africa's immense wealth and the paradox of poverty in the midst of plenty. But he doesn't stop there. In Chapter 2, he asks the hard question: why can't Africans turn these resources into true prosperity? The answer, he explains, lies in the many obstacles to economic progress, obstacles carefully maintained by the forces of neo-colonialism. The legacy of colonialism. Nkrumah reminds us that when colonial powers left Africa politically, they did not leave economically. They designed colonial economies to serve Europe, not Africa. Railways, ports, and even education systems were all built with one purpose: extraction. So, when African nations declared independence, they inherited economies that were dependent, fragile, and unbalanced. Monocrop economies. Most African nations were locked into producing a single crop or resource for export: cocoa in Ghana, groundnuts in Senegal, cotton in Uganda, copper in Zambia, oil in Nigeria. This meant that entire national economies rose and fell on the price of one product. Prices set not in Africa, but in London, Paris, or New York. One bad harvest or a sudden price drop, and an entire nation could be plunged into crisis. Lack of infrastructure for Africans. Colonialism left behind infrastructure designed for export, not development. Yes, there were railways, but they ran from the mines to the ports. Yes, there were schools, but only a few, designed to produce clerks and interpreters, not engineers and scientists. So Africans entered independence with limited capacity to process their own raw materials or build industries of their own. The debt trap and foreign aid. Nkrumah also highlights the trap of foreign aid and loans. What looked like generosity was often a way to keep African nations dependent. Loans came with strings attached, forcing governments to buy foreign goods, hire foreign companies, or surrender control over key policies. In the end, aid was not about building African strength, but ensuring Africa stayed tied to the economies of the West. The brain drain of skills. Another obstacle was the shortage of skilled labor. Colonial governments had deliberately avoided training large numbers of African professionals. As independence came, there were too few doctors, engineers, economists, or administrators to run complex economies. And many of those who were educated often found better opportunities abroad, leaving their home countries at a disadvantage. For Nkrumah, these obstacles were not accidents. They were part of a deliberate design to keep Africa dependent. His conclusion is clear. Unless Africa breaks free from these structural chains, political independence will remain hollow, and neo-colonialism will continue to dictate Africa's destiny. Chapter 2 exposes the roadblocks holding Africa back, roadblocks placed there by design. But Nkrumah does more than diagnose the problem. In the next chapter, he reveals the most powerful tool neo-colonialism uses to maintain control: imperialist finance. Stay tuned for Chapter 3 of our journey through neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. And remember, if you believe more people should understand how Africa's present is tied to its past, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to AfriFacts. Together, we tell the story of Africa in Africa's own voice.